We are Rogue Media Sports.
St. Louis is famous for introducing the world to gooey butter cake. Now, Bluebell brings to St. Louis and the rest of us gooey butter cake ice cream. A rich combination of cake batter ice cream, a luscious cream cheese swirl, and gooey butter cake pieces. Your taste buds will agree. It's the gateway to the best. Available in pints and half gallons. Look for Bluebell ice cream at your favorite grocer. If you can't find it, ask for it.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
And boy, sad day in the Metroplex. It's a rainy, dark day. I don't know how much of that had to do with the official announcement. It happened. Jason Witten has said goodbye to the Dallas Cowboys, had his official retirement ceremony today. Great crowd out there. All the teammates showed up for that. And I even saw Dez saying really nice things. I think initially Dez thought Jason might have been one of the Garrett guys who sort of did him in, but seemed like even Dez today was realizing might be a good thing to recognize the great Jason Witten, and he says goodbye. And tonight, Ed, I'm going to let you say who it is and sort of set this up since you delivered it. Another amazing guest, another Hall of Famer joins the Doomsday Podcast. Ed, would you give an introduction and just take us right into an amazing guest that you brought us?
Well, I think we are going to hear the unique perspective of a guy who you really valued the tight end position more than any other head coach I've known. He was obviously an enormous get for us, as he was for Jerry Jones, because nobody could believe that Bill Parcells would partner with Jerry Jones and coach the Dallas Cowboys. But Bill did that for 4 seasons, and then he did finally retire. But he was responsible for drafting Jason Witten in the 3rd round, and Witten proved that commitment and owned or lived up to it more than anybody could have imagined. A guy that Parcells deeply respected for his toughness, and we're going to talk in great detail about the fractured jaw that caused him to miss 1 game. But I think a couple of other things that a couple other points I want to make before we get to the interview, just quickly. I think when you talk to people with the Cowboys about what they're going to lose with Witten's unexpected retirement, they're going to lose. His productivity was on the decline. As we said last week, there's no denying that he was not physically the breakaway deep threat that he was at one point in his career. Averaged 1.6 yards after the catch, worst of his career. Only had 3 plays of 20 or more yards, fewest of his career. But they feel like they're going to lose a guy, that Dak could really rely on to throw the football to when he really needed to get it out of his hands. And they're going to lose a guy who brought tremendous leadership value, who epitomized what Jason Garrett wants in a football player. As we all know, he often referenced Witten that way. And I think that's why Garrett was so Garrett's got to be in mortal fear now of going into the season where he has to win. His job's on the line, and who are his locker room leaders that he can count on? We heard him in the all or nothing thing basically saying anybody who doesn't believe in my way, and that's the way it's going to be here, might find themselves out of a job. Well, Witten was one of the guys who fostered that and who supported Garrett in the locker room. And that's gone, and that's a tremendous loss for Jason Garrett going forward.
I think you're right, and without further ado, I want to give you the 2-time Super Bowl winning coach and the Hall of Famer, former Cowboys coach, the great Bill Parcells. Frito, if you'd play the music, please.
So today was a monumental day in the Cowboys offseason, the retirement of one of their most iconic players who holds many franchise records. And we are honored to have the last great coach the Cowboys have had. Bill Parcells is on the phone with us, making a special appearance because
Tried to butter him up already.
He's the guy who brought Jason Witten in as a third-round draft pick. And, Bill, we really appreciate you doing this. And I don't know if you got to see Witten's press conference, but just wonder what first impression he made on you when he came here. And did you have any sense that he'd evolve into a Hall of Fame type player?
Well, I don't think it can ever predict, when a rookie comes to a team, what's going to happen for sure. But he was a 4-year starter at Tennessee. It was good competition, and he played well there for a very, very long time. And he was a very determined player as a rookie when he came in, and he got himself established very quickly. We had a need at the position, and he got going, really pretty much from the start of training camp.
When the only game he missed in his entire career, he suffered a broken jaw during that rookie season that you mentioned. How did you handle that with him? He made some reference to you trying to motivate him by saying that Mark Bavaro only missed one game when he suffered a fractured jaw when he was your tight end with the Giants.
Well, that's true. That's what happened. Exactly. Bavaro missed one game and Witten missed one game.
and do you think that was a remarkably well-healing job the surgeons did on Witten, or do you think maybe his desire to impress you with his toughness?
The fact is, Bavaro broke his jaw in the first half of the game and played the whole second half.
Ooh. Oh, so Witten didn't give you that.
Well, listen, he was very courageous. Both of them were.
Yeah.
Both of them were very, very good players. And, Jason just had a wonderful career, and it's a tribute to his effort and to the guys that helped him along the way, and, to the organization that supported him. So that's what pro football is supposed to be about.
Players like
Come
Witten?
in, maximize your potential as a player, save your money, and make a good transition to society. That's the nice story about the NFL.
What was he alluded today that said in one of his first camps with you mentioned, if you'll trust me, I've got a pretty good formula for what could happen, to you as a tight end. I have a good formula for tight ends. What was your formula for tight ends?
Around some very good players.
Yeah.
At that position. Starting with my first year in the league in New England, we had a guy named Russ Francis. And then we also had on the same team Don Hasselbeck, who later was with the Giants and was very instrumental in Mark Bavaro's development, because Hasselbeck was that good veteran. And then after that, I had Ben Coates at the New England Patriots. Now, Ben caught 96 passes one year. And with Bledsoe and Coates, that was a very, very good combination. So then eventually, Jason, was a guy that I had seen people of his kind of ability, and, you just kind of have a little reservoir of things that you've done with those other players, and you try them out with him, and sure enough he could execute them too. So that was really mostly his doing, his hard work, his dedication to the playbook, to learning what to do, how to run routes, how to kind of elude the defenders properly and recognize coverage and that kind of thing. And he did a very, very good job very quickly.
It's kind of a nuanced position, isn't it? Is that what makes it uniquely demanding? And what
it is. Yeah. There's really no, it's physically taxing to play tight end, because you're either blocking full speed or you're running a pass route. And there really aren't any plays where you're not doing one of those two. And some other positions, the ball's not always coming your way, or there's a little time to take a little break once in a while. But tight end's really not like that. You're involved pretty much in the offense every single play, one way or another.
It seemed to me sort of symbolic of the kind of player Witten is and the way he approached the game, that he almost never outwardly, and certainly never overly celebrated his own touchdowns. But I can remember times where he'd make a seal block on a DeMarco Murray touchdown and he'd, punch the air or something that, he had sealed that guy off and kept him from getting to Murray and allowing his teammate to score a touchdown, that was more meaningful to him.
Well, he was a well-rounded player. I mean, he'd run, block, and catch. And that's what a tight end has to do if you're going to be complete at that position. Just like a running back, he has to run, block, and catch. Tight end has to do the same thing if he's going to be an effective player. Now, there are tight ends that are more pass-receiving types and get plenty of notoriety for doing that, but on some of the other stuff, some of the dirty work, they're not quite as up to speed.
Right.
But Jason did his best in both areas.
Why do you think he and Romo were so seemingly great for each other? And what do you think it was about? Do you think sometimes, Bill, when two guys that come into the league together and become that close of friends, and obviously still are, does that even sort of help the on-field relationship?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, without question. Now, Tony was a little slower coming along and getting, into the game. It took Tony a couple of years before he was ready to play, and Jason, of course, got in a little quicker. But I think they were, they're draft class teammates. They, when they come in together, they get to know each other from different parts of the country and become friends. And that's one of the great things about the sport. You get some new guys, and you get some new guys every year. And some of them wind up being your lifelong friends, just like I had players and coaches that are my lifelong friends. And that's part of the experience that's so great about the game.
Do you have a favorite anecdote or some story that kind of epitomizes the kind of relationship you had with Jason, or the kind of player he was, his commitment to the team during the time you spent with him?
Well, when the players first come in, the one of the things that I think can set players back a little bit is if they start paying attention to ancillary things that are not really directly related to the game and to his craft and his development as a player, and more related to the newfound fame, marketing ability that, a lot of times the agents or people around town, they're coming to the players for things. And, I always try to kind of warn the players about that being a trap you can fall into. And I used to tease Witten. I said, Witten, you do anything for 10 cents off on a turkey, And I tease him about stuff like that, but he was very good and very dependable and very, very dedicated to his profession. Did
the playing with the broken jaw after a week of missing a game, did that say anything to you about the kind of competitor he is?
Of course it did. It's players that exhibit mental toughness and physical toughness, and they're dependable and reliable and accountable. Those are traits that are invaluable in football, because the game it's not without some of these things that can kind of set you back a little bit, and some of them are physical. And, it's just being able to, I'm not trying to be non-sensitive to physical issues, but, I used to tell the players for the teams I coach, anybody can play when they feel good, fellas. I said it's the hurt and tired guys that usually win, and that's the truth. There's always a little something wrong with everybody once the season gets going, and there is an element of fatigue that enters into these games, and the teams that can, and the guys that can, get through that part of it, have a real good chance to be successful. Some just give into it all the time. I mean, you see it in athletes, and going gets, a little sticky, and, they're not, then all of a sudden they're not the same guy. But in Jason's case, he was.
Was that the first time he made you proud?
Pardon me?
Was that the first time he made you proud as his coach?
Well, I don't think that's the right word. That's when you start to respect the player, and you learn a lot about him there. So if he is complaining about something bothering him, it's really bothering him. And so when a guy exhibits the mental and physical toughness, then you don't question that. Once you see him do it, you don't ever question that again.
Bill, did either Tony or Jason, they're both going to end up with very high-profile broadcasting jobs. Yeah. Did either one of them pick your brain since you, after your coaching days were over,
yes.
did some broadcasting?
I talked to Tony on a couple of occasions, and I did have talked to Jason recently about it. I wouldn't say he was picking my brain. Jason, so much he was trying to decide what to do. And, that's when you're transitioning from something that and you've been part of your life for 15 years, that's not the easiest thing to do. And besides, you're pretty good at it too. And so it can be a tough decision because you're going to something that you really don't know much about.
You're the guy who famously said, once you start thinking about retiring, you're retired, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I'm the one that originated that, but I know a lot of people use that phrase, but I don't really. I think, certain people can contemplate things, and then when they decide to go forward, can make a full commitment to it. And I don't believe that saying in total, if you're talking about it, we all know it's going to happen. We all have to get off the train, every single one of us, including commissioners and owners and officials and players and trainers. And we all have to get off. And sometimes it's not as easy for some as it is for others.
Is Jason one of those guys that you just mentioned who will be able to pivot and invest himself fully and be satisfied?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think, whatever he starts out to do, he's going to try to do it. He's very prideful. So, but, it's a new industry and it's a new experience. And as you know, from being in the media, it doesn't always go smoothly.
It's not always fair, Bill. I know that.
No, that's right. It's not.
Do you ever get a kick out of hearing Romo? One of the things you used to have to try to coach Romo up on a little bit was he was doing too much sort of outside the play. He was trying to referee the game. He was trying, this was, fairly early on, he was just trying to do so much. When you hear him predicting plays and how excited he is on the air, do you almost kind of think back to that, oh my gosh, this little kid from Eastern Illinois who had no clue what was going on in 2003 in San Antonio is now like the belle of the ball at the
but that's to his credit as well. And he made a great career for himself, and he's embarked on another one. And like I said at the beginning of the show, that's what pro football is supposed to be about. We hear so many stories about the guys that played for 10 years and 2 years after they're out, they don't have anything. They don't have a job, they don't have any money. And those are the sad cases. But these guys here, that's what it's supposed to be about.
Bill, what obviously the Cowboys made the decision to waive Dez Bryant. Now they've unexpectedly lost Jason Witten after a lot of the offseason has been spent. How detrimental, or what do you think the challenge becomes now for a young quarterback like Dak Prescott without those two proven players in his offense?
Somebody's going to be playing those positions. I mean, that's the way he's got to look at it. Somebody's going to be playing those positions. There's probably a good chance they're not going to be quite as productive initially as the other two fellows that just left. There's probably a real good chance of that. But the quarterback's job is to make it work. And the new guys in those job is to learn their quarterback and learn their system and try to execute it to their ability. And that's the way the game is. That's nothing new. So, they're going to have somebody playing tight end and somebody's going to be playing split end at Dallas this year. And, on Monday mornings after the games, they're not going to be talking about Dez Bryant, Jason Witten. They'll be talking about these new guys, what they did.
What do you think are the qualities that the Cowboys are going to miss the most immediately with Witten's absence?
Dependability is one. I mean, every Sunday for 15 years, they knew who their tight end was going to be. That's unusual.
Seemed like he always created a place for the quarterback to go with the football where he knew,
Yeah, he was very good. He was very good that way.
Now, Bill, a lot of people, we'll wrap it up here, but a ton of people that listen to the Doomsday Podcast with Werder and I are always kind of wondering what you're up to these days. What do you do with your days, and what are you into? One of the guys you remember, Randy Galloway, called me earlier and wanted to know if you had a trifecta pick for the Derby. Yeah,
I don't have a trifecta, but I did make a small wager today on Good Magic.
Good Magic. That's not the Tom Benson horse, right? The Gail Benson Saints Lone Sailor, I believe.
No, that's Lone Sailor, right?
Which is a long shot in this race.
Yeah, 50-1.
A lot of money to be made if that horse does anything. Hey, one more thing, Bill, before we let you go. We are very grateful to have your time and your opinions. Hall of Fame. It's been difficult for tight ends to get in. They've historically waited years and years to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's never been a first ballot Hall of Fame tight end. Maybe Tony Gonzalez will change that before Witten becomes eligible. But how do you see that playing out for Jason Witten? Is he, in your mind, a Hall of Famer for all he's done, despite the fact he never played in a championship game or a Super Bowl?
On roller skates.
On roller skates. He's not a walk-in, he's a skate-in?
Roller skates.
If they don't put Jason Witten in the Hall of Fame, they shouldn't have a Hall of Fame, I think is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he'll be in there.
Well, Bill, we appreciate it. Loved covering you.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much for doing
all
this.
goes well in Dallas.
I had the great privilege of covering Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells, the two most fascinating guys I've ever covered in the NFL on a regular basis. Thanks so much, Bill. Appreciate your time. Enjoy
You're
the Derby.
welcome, fellas. Good luck.
All right, there he goes. The great Bill Parcells, the Hall of Famer himself, joining the Doomsday Podcast, breaking down everything with today's momentous occasion of Jason Witten saying goodbye and announcing his official retirement from the Dallas Cowboys as he gets ready to embark on a broadcasting career. Perhaps, Ed, he will get into the podcasting business. Or maybe he'll just go ahead and focus on being the analyst on Monday Night Football.
There's two things in this regard that before we break down, Witten's impact as a football player on the Cowboys, there's two things I want to say that to me represent the kind of person he is. And the first of those is when we were at training camp last year, we had made no request of Jason Witten to be our guest. And on a player's day off, he stood out there on the field and worked with one of Jerry's grandkids, as he had promised, for over an hour and a half. And when he was finished, he had a clear escape route to avoid you and I. And almost every player in football that I've ever met
would take that route.
Not walk to it, but run to it. Gone on roller skates, as Parcells might have said. And Jason Witten instead walked right over to our location, sat down, and spent 45 minutes as one of the great guests we've ever had. And the other one I wanted to talk about is...
And by the way, I don't think we had reached out or notified him other than we just kind of were hanging around, and he sat down and said, you want to do something?
Yeah, let's do it. And the other one was not long ago, this past season, which proved to be his final year, I went out there because I was going to cover a game, and I guess it wasn't last year, it was the year before that. Anyway, I went out to cover a game last year, and I guess it was for Westwood One. And I had told him that I wanted to talk to him at the locker room on Friday. And he said, great. So I go out there, and we had a nice, casual, 10-minute conversation. And I tape recorded all of it, or so I thought. I didn't realize until I got in the parking lot that my tape recorder was not running. It's one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened to me. That just never happened. It's your biggest fear. You dream about it. It doesn't really ever happen, but it happened. And so I reached out to Witten, and I explained what happened to him, and I said, can I please get another 10 or 15 minutes with you? He called me the day before the game to make sure that I had what I needed from Jason Witten. That's the kind of guy Jason Witten is.
Yeah, I think it's remarkable, and thought it was very fitting today, and seeing his family. I love it when players, especially guys like him that have just been through all sorts of injuries and played through a lot of pain, and obviously just missed that one game. I mean, we didn't even bring up with Parcells because he was already gone, but you remember, Ed, one of the things that I remember was that preseason, or it wasn't a preseason game. They had the first game of the year against the Giants, and everybody was wondering, is he going to play? Is he going to play? It was at the Giants. And against the Raiders in a preseason game, I think Rolando McClain is the player who hit him. And at the time, Rolando McClain was a first-round pick that was with the Raiders. Ed, do you need to take that?
It's my birthday, and I'm sure it's my daughter calling for my birthday.
It is your Ed.
I'm
happy birthday.
I'm unemployed. It's my 58th birthday, and here I am working.
What does that say?
Wait,
now you turned 58 last year. I'd like to.
I swear it's true. I can get you a birth certificate.
Okay.
Go ahead, anyway, finish your story.
Yeah,
I'll call Christy later.
Okay. Hi, Christy. I hope she listens to some of these. Ruptured spleen, I believe that injury was, and. To hear Parcells talk about it, did you hear that little clarifier? That's not something that's like something new for him to say, listen, I know player safety is important. That's not something I think the old school folks ever brought up. But there, Jerry Jones and Jason Witten, as I recall, they flew to New York early and were basically looking for any doctor that would say,
Clear Witten,
you can play. So, I mean, they've got team doctors.
Which Witten had already decided he was playing.
I think he did.
Yeah.
But they were able to go find somebody. And I thought it was interesting to hear. And again, I never want to make it too much about myself, although people accuse me of that at some points. But, I mean, I do. Man, that was my first beat job. You remember, Ed, what was your first beat job? Were you covering the Broncos?
The Denver Broncos.
I mean, this was my first beat job. It was 2003. I mean, it's the dream. You got Parcells in his first year with the Cowboys, and I just remember Witten, even just in the training camp, in his relationship with Romo. Another player who just signed on for another year that will be 40 during this season. Terrence Newman was on that team. I think Brady James came in with them. He was a fourth-round pick. Witten, by the way, it's really funny that he and Romo were so close. Here's Romo undrafted. And at some point was just like, I just hope to kind of hang around for a while. And he becomes a star. I remember this about those two. Maybe I should write about this for the morning news. I remember in Romo's, you remember the Giants game that he came into? Parcells put him in there at halftime of that game. He pulled Drew Bledsoe. That was the sixth game of the season. The next week, Romo started at the Panthers. And I'll never forget the story, like Romo threw an interception, turned it over in typical Romo fashion, and they're down 14-0 early to the Panthers.
Are we doing a Romo podcast or a Witten podcast?
Well, hey, don't. And Frito's over here nodding, encouraging.
He knows I'm right.
No, he knows you're not right because this is all about Witten.
Okay,
Witten,
let's get to it.
I'm serious. This is a podcast. We can get to whatever the hell I want to get to. So at some point, Witten goes and grabs Romo and basically picks him up and says, "What are you doing? Are you okay? What's happening?" And shook him like a little kid. And Romo said, "I got this. I'm fine. We're going to be fine." They went on to win that game. And I would say, as far as the, I don't want to turn this into like Brokeback Mountain or something, but in terms of the quarterback-receiver, quarterback-tight end relationship, there are not many closer relationships that we've ever seen in the history of the NFL than Witten and Romo. And that will always be remembered.
Well, you know what? And that makes me think of something.
What, Brokeback?
Now that Romo is retired and Witten is retired, maybe Jerry can bring back T.O. to replace Dez. It might work.
How old is T.O.?
I know T.O. will think he's capable. He's in his 40s now, but he still thinks he's capable. Anyway, so one more thing. That was a good anecdote, and I hadn't heard that before, quite honestly.
All right.
And I didn't think I was going to hear it there because I thought I was going to doze off. But I wanted to get into a little bit more detail about the thing we talked to Parcells about, the famous broken jaw, the only game that Witten missed of a possible 240 in his career, because I emceed an event at Cowboys Golf Club last season with Witten, and he told the story in great detail. And I said last week I had this great anecdote about Witten that I was going to share, so I want to honor that obligation. So here it is. So when he's a rookie, he told me he get hit so hard on the right side of his face that he fractured his jaw in 3 places on the left side. A Dallas Stars doctor did the surgery, and he was at the hospital alone with no idea how to proceed. In fact, finally, a Cowboys trainer came to check in on him, and Witten said he asked him if he was still on the team. That's how naive Witten was. He didn't know if he was still on the team after he fractured his jaw. He said he was reassured and then told that the players who were injured had to be at the facility 6:30 the next morning, and that he would be required to join his injured teammates there. So it also happened to be a weigh-in day. And so with some players having as much as $500 per pound on the line, this was a significant event for these guys. And so they would do whatever was necessary to cut weight. Well, Witten has his jaw wired shut, and he's worried about the opposite. He's worried about losing weight. And so Parcells was there waiting for him with 3 tiny jars of baby food, sweet potatoes. And he gave them to Witten and suggested that he consume them because he couldn't lose weight with the injury if he wanted to play. And so if he was healthy enough to play and he didn't lose weight while recovering from the injury, Parcells would let him play, and he'd let him know each one of these containers of baby food is worth about 300 calories, so here's your first 3. So that week, Witten missed the only game of his career, and it was a miserable experience that he was determined never to repeat again. And when he went back the next morning after the game to weigh in, he knew he had to be close to his playing weight, and he wasn't. And so Witten told me he took a 10-pound bag of sand from the weight room and dropped it in his pants and went in when Parcells supervised the weigh-in. He weighed 251, and Parcells said, "You can play this week. You made weight." 10 pounds of sand in his pants. Don't tell me how that escaped anybody's notice, but that's what he said happened. 10 pounds of sand. A 10-pound bag of sand in his pants to make weight. That's how much he wanted to play. That's how much he hated not playing. He never did it again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That is, he had good stuff. Thought it started to drag a bit in the middle, but no, you finished strong. And, to any of us who've put stuff in our pants before, that is some kind of story. And as we conclude, by the way, excellent job by you. The Hall of Famer Bill Parcells, you continue to kind of top yourself. I think right now our Mount Rushmore of Doomsday guest, I would go with Aikman, Favre, and Bill Parcells. And then I think Rushmore has one more face.
Doug Peterson? Who would wind up winning the Super Bowl? And now
that's big, but Dak was big too. In terms of Cowboys land. Okay. Do we go with the Super Bowl winning coach, or do we go with Dak Prescott? I'm going to go with Dak.
I also think that in terms of quality, the 2 of the interviews we did at training camp last year in Oxnard, Witten and Darren Woodson were exceptional.
Both Both great. Both guys.
Both welcome anytime.
I would always
Doomsday Podcast.
call those Rushmore type guys. And Ed, just terrific stuff with Bill Parcells. And I wish we had recorded the part where Bill was kind of, I knew he would do this. He was kind of like, how long is this going to be? You're like 15. He's like, is that okay? And he's like, I wish it were 10.
That's Bill. The first time I ever met Bill, I was working for ESPN. I was covering a Jets game up in the Meadowlands. And because that was, in the area that Sal Palantonio and Rachel Nichols generally worked those games, I didn't get up there all that often. I didn't see the Jets, and I never met Parcells. And as luck would have it for me, the reason I was there was because there was some question about Vinny Testaverde playing in the game, that he was injured, and he was a Jets starting quarterback, and so we didn't know if he was going to play. And so that was the piece of information that I needed to ascertain before I went on the air. And as luck would have it, my grandmother lived in Nutley, New Jersey, 5 minutes from the Meadowlands. So I took her out to breakfast, had a car service, the whole deal for her. And I had the car service drop me off in the parking lot. And they dropped me off at the same time Bill Parcells was being dropped off and getting out of his town car, which was great fortune for me. So I rush up to Bill, and I just start peppering him with questions about Vinny Testaverde's status and his health. And Bill looks at me sideways, like that, like he does. And I asked him about 5 more questions, and he finally looks at me and he goes, was I supposed to meet you here? Which was his way of saying, I don't owe you a thing. I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're bothering me with these questions. I have no intention of answering. That was my introduction to Bill Parcells.
So you turned 58 today. How old would you have been during that interview? Let's do the math.
I don't know. Whenever he's with the Jets late in his career there, I don't know. He's
30s. You been in your 30s already?
I was probably in my 40s.
No, that's long ago. You were back in your 30s.
Well, I was only at ESPN for 19 years and counting.
All right. Well, let's not dial down too much on this. I do remember, by the way, he said to Rich Dalrymple, the Cowboys PR guy, he wanted to know who the guy was from the morning news that was making all the weird faces. And so
that was you?
Dalrymple says, it's Matt Mosley. And to which Bill goes, the guy looks like a dog looking through a jar of water at me. I don't even know what that means. But I do remember
Bill was great.
Yeah. It's good to have him on. Bill and Jerry, by the way, same age. Both 70, about 76 years old, I think, is where they stand on this day. And Ed, excellent job. Another Doomsday Podcast in the books. Anything you want to add? Anything else that you thought of? I mean, I would have to say that the Cowboys have some trouble at tight end right now. They're going to have to figure that position out. I mean,
they've got the guy who's the third leading receiver in the history of the game at any position, and they're turning that position now over to 4 guys who have a combined 9 regular season catches, all by Swaim.
Yeah, they're going to have to do it a different way. Tavon's going to have to line up. They're going to do a lot of jet sweeps. I don't know what they're going to do because, as I described on our last podcast, people tell me Dalton Schultz, the 4th-round pick out of Stanford, is jack of all trades, master of none.
Right, I think they think he can handle the blocking part. It's what about being where you're supposed to be and being a reliable receiver for a quarterback who's got a whole bunch of new receivers that he's got to create a chemistry with in a single offseason.
As one of our top and most loyal listeners, Ted Steinke, my neighbor and one of the top criminal defense attorneys in Dallas, said, at least we have Rico Gathers waiting in the wings.
There are a lot of people who think that this is great because finally Witten's out of the way and Rico Gathers can do what he said last year, which was he's going to become the most dominant tight end in football.
I watched almost every basketball game the guy ever played. Sadly, he never played a down of football at Baylor. He was a wonderful basketball player. I mean, one of the great rebounders in the history of the Big 12. I don't know. I just know that we've seen flashes in the
had his
preseason.
moments, yeah.
And we saw the same thing from Martellus Bennett, and it never happened
at least
here.
In Bennett's case, he got on the field in the regular season. There just has seemed no indication the Cowboys coaching staff is overly excited about Gathers and his potential.
I think they were.
They never have made an effort to put him on the field.
No, I think they were ready to, and he got that concussion, and it just knocked him out for like the entire season. I think that 1 year he was like lighting it up in the preseason and making some really nice catches. I think they were ready to do something with him.
So they were going to replace a guy who's missed one game in 240 games with a guy who misses an entire year with a concussion. I wonder how Bill would have reacted to Rico.
I think Rico's a good dude. I think he would have been
putting
fine.
gasoline cans in his locker, I think.
Rico, I think he's doing some music as well. Rico's a good. I like Rico a lot. Ed, it's been wonderful. Thanks for making up the trip. We used a new studio tonight, and
must be paying Frito well.
Frito Nation. Oh, I continue to occasionally pay him, and he is beautiful studio up here in Allen.
It's his second studio. If you paid him for every show he did for us, he'd probably have 3 or 4.
Yeah, some PayPal issues there, but wonderful. Boy, come out here and see us in Allen sometime. Suite 166.
We did have some onlookers tonight.
Oh, that gal was looking at us underneath the fritted glass or whatever that is, frosted glass that Frito has. It's frosted or something.
It's frosted, but what'd you call it?
Fritted. There is such a thing as fritted glass. They have it.
Really?
Yeah, Jerry. I remember. I don't want to get into that.
Okay, I think we should sign off.
I don't think so. The one thing I will say is Frito. I heard some people walking around above us. I am going to pay for some soundproofing, and I've got. And also,
should I go ahead and buy it now? And
yes. We're on the verge of some big things happening. Thank you, by the way, Warren Buffett. I don't want to get too specific here. Warren Buffett. My goodness, we're happy that you're suddenly very interested in our podcast. I want to say goodnight to everybody live from Allen, Texas. Thank you to Bill Parcells. Thank you to Ed Werder, and thank you to Mark Frito Friedman. Say goodnight, Ed.
Good night, and thanks, Matt Mosley.
Lights are shining, stockings have been hung. You're praying for your daughter, lighting candles for your son. They're living in the city now, you don't see them anymore.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.